Jeff is a one-off, you know.
Yeah.
I take quite highly of Jeff.
He's an absolute star.
He's a gentleman.
Yeah.
There are not many gentlemen like Jeff.
No.
You can see Jeff's paintings, yeah.
Just the detail he gets in his stuff.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
If I do a sketch, because I'll be taking photos and then I'll draw a quick line drawing of what it is, and I will make notes alongside certain areas that I really want to capture or bring out, like, you know, and others I want to fade into the background. There's absolutely no abstract in my work at all. You know, it is what it is. They are illustrations. At the end of the day, they're illustrated, but they tell the story, and that's important to me. Is to be the storyteller. Every painting tells a story, and then when you get the exhibition, it tells a much bigger story. It was going to be a series of paintings on steel and tin plate, and I started it 2.5 years ago and started doing the drawings ready for it, and 1 or 2 paintings, and it was going to include various different steelworks and tin plate works that had closed down in the region, and also working ones as well. And what happened was, I was contacted by Graham Rowlands, who was the archivist in Margam, because I'd done a couple of shots of Margam, and he said, Jeff, come down into the factory, and we'll have a look around, take some photos, do a series on Margam. So about 2 years ago, I actually started painting what was then going to be 12 paintings of Margam Abbey steelworks. And now with the closure of Margam, a great deal of urgency in getting this exhibition up and running. This is taken over as my priority of work for the time being, because this is something that I wasn't originally planning on, but it's something that has to be done in order to record the historical moment and historical time that's going on in Margam. There's a great deal of sadness about the actual closure of the works, and of course it's going to affect people, it's going to affect livelihoods and the whole region, and not just the Margam Abbey steelworks, but the knock-on effect for supplies and shipping and all sorts of other things that link in with the closing down of an absolute industry. It's just a coincidence that it's come at this time, and I'm recording this, you know. So many families that have fathers, sons, daughters, brothers working in Margam. The backdrop of that has been there now since the 1950s, and of course it's all going to be gone. For the first time ever, the skyline will be completely changed.
Yeah.
People actually worked then until they died, really.
Yeah.
There was all, you know, retirement as such, because they didn't know how old they were, and they were quite happy with the lifestyle they had here. You know, you had canteens here, you could wash your clothes, you had drying rooms where you could dry your clothes. So it was like a little town. Go out for a pint. You know, my mate said to me, his brother-in-law worked on the blast furnaces. So he was a keeper. Now the keepers were in charge of the furnace. So he walked into, they load a furnace in a buggy car. So he walked into the buggy car pulpit, and there was a woman sitting there, operating a buggy car. So he said to her, "What are you doing, love?" She said, "It's okay, I know what I'm doing." He's popped out for a pint and he told me what to do.
For generations, families have given their blood, sweat, tears, and some, very sadly, even their lives to this place.
Tony lives there, he used to live there, his son lives there. And he came down to visit him in the car and his son gave him a dinner to take home. All right, boys. All right, yep. All right, yep. All the boys go in training. So he put the dinner on top of the car before he opened the door and the seagulls came down and ate it. What it was, you see, I was born in 1938. And the major part of the steelworks, or the modern part, was built in 1947, which was about, I don't want to exaggerate, but about 400 yards away from my home, just the other side of the mainline railway. And as kids, we played there while we were building it and things like that. And then it was obvious, you don't want to work there. It was, we knew a lot about it before we got there, I understand. But yeah, I started there 1954 with my father and my uncles. So I ended up in the plate line, and my father was in the Orchard, which was next door. Yeah, I enjoyed it there. When I went on shifts, I was driving a small crane, and the fella who taught me it was my uncle. So that sort of thing. And my father, when I moved to the next department, my father was in that one, and we used to work together. My mother used to clean the offices. So, and all the street where I lived, originally it was the main entrance to the works. So everybody had to pass our house to go into work. Like, you know. And then, unfortunately, when I was about 70, my mother died. And so my father and I were on different shifts. So all the cleaners then they had to go in by 6 in the morning, the women cleaners. So they'd be knocking my door, making sure I'm awake to get me into work. And they were most of them were my aunties and cousins and God knows, they all worked there. It was a real good place. And then, of course, Andrew worked there, and Michael, my other son, he worked there as well. And it's been a good thing for the town, and, well, for me personally, excellent, like, you know.
What made you get a job in the steelworks?
Well, my brother was working there before me, Michael, and he nagged the managers about getting me a start because I was contracting with the local contracting firm called William Press, which no longer exists. And he nagged, and in the end, it was the type of time when you didn't really have to go through much of an interview. So I sort of had a phone call, go and see a manager called Alan Morris. I went down and he said start on a Monday.
So no qualifications or anything needed?
They didn't stress any qualifications then. I had 3 or 4 levels from school, but nothing really mattered at that time because I just needed people who were reliable, to turn up to work and to work the weekends and to work horrible shifts. And they didn't need people with any qualifications, to be honest. And some of the ones who weren't qualified were better operators than the ones who were.
So what part was you in to start?
I started off in Kneeling Bay for 5 weeks, which is like heaven compared to a lot of the places in there, because it was like a job and finish every shift. But it was all to do with working with a overhead crane, which when you're not used to it was a little bit daunting, it was scary. So I had 5 weeks on air covering Alan Doyle, who was Francis Doyle's brother. And I was told after that 5 weeks you'd probably be laid off, which would have been Christmas time. But instead of being laid off, I went into the pickle line. And everybody hated the pickle line. It was where everybody was sent because of naughty boys. But I ended up going in there and having a thoroughly great time for 20 years in the pickle line.
On the pickle line for 20 years?
In 20 years, yeah.
I was there for what, 3 months with Scott?
Yeah.
That was enough for me.
It's a loud and nasty, smelly place, but because of that, because of the conditions weren't great. that was what it drew the people together, and because the work wasn't particularly tasking, other than it was boring and continual.
Yeah, when I first started, I was scared just driving on site, the size of the machines going past. Unbelievable. Then you go through the boss plant and things like that. And you were the older boys who were just walking through the boss plant, and you was hiding behind things like, what's that up there?
That's right. Yeah.
And he didn't seem to bat an eyelid at.
It'll be strange if they close it. And I would like to say, well, yeah, before you close it, after you close it, put it back to what it was like before. Because I remember what it was like. This is all wildfowl and big duck pond with swans on it and things like that. And that was the Sunday afternoon when we was kids, before they built it, to walk down there and feed the swans and things like that. And of course, a magnificent beach there. And the farmhouse, which they covered with all the spoil and the waste slag and things. There were two little, we used to call them woods, they were like little, I don't know, copses, very small little forests of pine trees. And we used to, the black woods we used to call it, because it's very dark. And you'd play in there, and it was sad then when last time I went down that way, they were gone, all covered by the slag, you know. So I wonder if they will put it back to the way it was.
Steel worker. We bleed steel.